Hey yo, Mark here for Mark's Max Muscle. And today we're going to be doing part 2 of my 4-part series entitled Controversy at the Olympia. Now in part 1 we went over the 1970, 72, 1980, and 1981 Mr. Olympia events. Now the first two, I don't really justify deeming either of these two events controversial, as the picture quality was low. And even with the quality of pictures that I did see, neither guy was dominating over the other two, so I don't deem them controversial. However, the next two, the 80 and the 81 events, I deem highly controversial. Now, I say highly controversial because in both events, in both champions, I believe lost to a number of athletes that year. Not only the second and third place competitors, but a number of competitors in both years. So that's quite controversial in my eyes. Anyway, on with part 2. We're going to be going over the 1991, 94, and the 97 Mr. Olympia events. Ooh, that's 3 in one decade. Anyway, let's get started. And on with the 1991 Mr. Olympia. Here's two competitors, Dorian Yates and Lee Haney. They were, in fact, first and second place that year. The front lat pose here, I would say Dorian's taking this shot over the returning champion, Lee Haney. Here's a front relaxed. I'm going to give this one to Yates. Conditioning just edges him out here. Again, he's not dominating him in the pose, he's just kind of edging him out. You hear from the side a little bit better of a look at his conditioning here. You can see that Yates is just kind of more than edging him out in this shot. Of course, here in the front double bicep, I'm going to have to go with Haney in this one. He just looks a lot better in this shot. Aside from conditioning, I just think this is a weak pose for Dorian. He just doesn't really have the look to really make this shot effective. Here's a side chest. Again, a weak pose for Dorian. And I have to give this one to Haney. Sorry. Here's a ab and thigh. I'm going to go with Yates on this one again. Here's from the side here. This is interesting. You can really see the conditioning in this shot. And when it comes to conditioning, Yates is overwhelming Haney. Of course, in muscularity, Haney's doing quite well for himself with those bowling ball pectorals, of course. But do I think this is a controversial Mr. Olympia? No, I don't. To beat the champion, you really have to dominate him in all poses, and Yates just did not do that. So I don't think this is a controversial event. But on with the next event, 1994. And on the contrary, I think this is one of the most controversial Mr. Olympia events. Of course, this is going to be Dorian Yates versus Sean Ray, as this illustration suggests. But there was other members in this event that pushed Dorian. Look at this shot here. Dorian looks extremely bloated, especially compared to a sharp and crisp Sean Ray. Sean Ray just looks incredible here, from head to toe. Great legs. Here's Kevin Levrone, just thrown in the mix here. Now see, if I had to put these guys in a row, I'm looking at Sean Ray and Kevin Levrone for first, which is hard to decide. And I'm placing Dorian in third here. Here's from the back. It's a little harder to defeat Dorian from behind. He just has that overwhelming size. Of course, on Sean Ray's smaller frame, his legs appear to be larger. And his biceps look a whole lot better too. Of course, this is the year that Dorian I believe that his left bicep is torn. But I have to say, from the rear, I'm gonna have to give this one to Dorian. Just edging him out here, just because of the sheer thickness of the muscles in the back. Of course, when you look at the glutes, Sean Ray's just incredible conditioning. Here's a lat pose. Here, Dorian's back really dominates the other two guys here. Of course, when you bring your eyes down to their glutes, you can definitely tell Sean Ray's just superior conditioning here. But overall, this is rear lats, so. And Kevin Levrone is impressive. His back's usually not this dominating. I'm going to have to almost go with Kevin Levrone, surprisingly, in this shot. Here's a side tricep here, if you can call it that. Sean Ray not really hitting it correctly, and Dorian kind of sticking his gut out. I have to give this one to Kevin Levrone, out of sheer inaccuracy of the posing with Dorian and Sean Ray. Now look at this pose here. There's no doubt Sean Ray takes this one. Of course, Sean Ray a lot smaller than Dorian, so it's not a head-to-head comparison. But he just looks a whole lot better, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, much to Sean Ray's chagrin, and perhaps Kevin Levrone, Dorian took the title. Now, in my opinion, this was the most highly controversial Olympia since 1981. And there's your champion. Not much of one, really, if you ask me. But, what do I know? I'm just a fan. A huge fan of Robbie Robinson, in fact. And as you can see by this comparison, this is actually Dorian Yates from 1994. And Robbie Robinson, also from 1994, as the Masters Olympia champion. So really, just from this shot alone, the Masters Olympia champion is beating the Olympia Open champion. Jeez, that Robbie Robinson is some good. I'm telling you. Anyway, that's it for 1994. On with 1997. And again, Dorian Yates makes an appearance once again. Here's Kevin Levrone and Nasser El-Sambadi to his left and right. And you can see right away, Dorian Yates is not in the best condition. And if you notice his left bicep, now I'm sure it's his left bicep now, you can see it's just melted right off the bone. You can see that. It's very aesthetically unpleasing. So this is a judged pageant, and when it comes to something that's very unsightly to the eye, you really got to take points away from that. Now, here's Dorian's take-home pose, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to almost lean towards Nasser in this one. If you notice, the legs of Dorian really shriveled up. Either that or Nasser's legs have really increased in size. And in the arm department, Dorian's arms are a lot smaller as well. But it's close in this pose. Any other year, I would definitely give that one to Dorian. Now from the rear, you can see Dorian's back development is definitely superior to Nasser's. Of course, in all other aspects, you can see the hamstrings are very impressive on Nasser, and the arms, just very impressive. Overwhelming Dorian. You could have an argument to say Nasser wins this pose, but I'm looking at the trap development in the lower back region, even in the glute department. I'd have to say Dorian is edging him out a little bit, slightly. But surprisingly, in the calf department, Nasser's actually not only competing, but maybe even edging Dorian out. Very impressive. It's close in this shot. Now, turn them around and it's no doubt in anybody's mind who's winning this shot. But a point that I should make is that Nasser's bicep looks a little bit suspect to me. Is it synthal? Well, I'm not an expert. But if I had to make a hypothesis on this, I would say yes, his arms are full of synthal. But that's not what this video is about. Conditioning-wise, everything else, Nasser's just overwhelming Dorian. Here's a good, little bit better of a shot here. Side chest. I'm going to go with Nasser again. For sure, without a doubt. I'm going to go with Nasser in this pose. Well, this picture here really tells a tale. Anybody, even a novice to the sport, can tell you who should win this. Just in this front relaxed pose. But of course, Dorian Yates was picked as champion. And here's 3 competitors here that year that, well, in my opinion, should have placed ahead of Dorian. But the champion being the champion is next to impossible to beat. To me, the 1997 Mr. Olympia is just as, if not more controversial than the 94 one. To me, it definitely ranks up there with some of the most controversial decisions ever made from the IFBB. Well, that's it for part 2 of my 4-part series entitled Controversy at the Olympia. Keep an eye out for part 3, where we're going to be going over the 2001 and 2007 Mr. Olympia events. So I hope you enjoyed this segment. Hit like and subscribe if you did. That's it for now. This is Mark for Mark's Max Muscle.